Everybody, it's Mel back with another episode of Coach's Corner with Coach Stacy Rhea. Yay! And our topic today is we are boosting performance with core stability and mobility. And this is going to be really interesting because I probably confuse stability and mobility. And I'm sure if I do that, maybe other people do. So, Stacy, it is now your turn to talk about this and maybe putting the difference between the two so that I understand if I'm doing the right exercises.
Right. No, that's good. I find that often that there's a little confusion. So this will be a nice way to clarify it for everybody, especially if you're taking the time to be in the gym and do some of the strength training that enhances your performance. We'll talk a little bit today about what core stability is, what is the difference between core stability and core strength, as well as why core stability matters and how core stability and mobility affect your performance. So there'll be some little things in between there, but that's the gist of what we'll talk about today. So first, I'd like to kind of define what the core is, because I have many people that think, at least when I meet them for training for the first couple sessions, they think the core is just the abdominal area. And it's really a 360 view. So we're looking at everything from, our rectus abdominis to our obliques, our spinal erectors, our erector spinae, which I said backwards, transverse muscles, our pelvic floor, the multifidus, which a lot of people have never heard of that muscle, the glutes, max, medius, minimus, our adductors, plus our diaphragm, which I'm not going to get too much into the diaphragm and the lats, but I want to talk more about the core. So this makes up the whole 360 area. And what's interesting is that there is a difference between the stability and the strength. I'll give you an example. So the strength is the force the core muscles can produce. So if you were to do a farmer's carry where you're holding either one or two of the dumbbells or kettlebells and you're walking through the gym, you're literally like bracing your core to hold that weight in place so that you're not tipping from side to side. You don't want your torso to collapse. So that is, and it's an anti-rotational force, which ties into the stability, which is the ability to control that force to keep the alignment under load. So you're stabilizing the body by keeping it stiff, but then you're bracing it by engaging like in an isometric hold. That's probably a better way to explain it, that isometric hold where those muscles are contracted, they're not actually moving. Versus, and that's where they kind of work hand in hand together. So you got to have the force, the strength or the weight behind it in order to complete that stability. I'll get a little bit more into that. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. And actually, as you're explaining the 360 and the farmer's carry, I'm thinking about how I feel when I'm doing the farmer's carry and like the muscles that are working that I can feel, first, like when I'm just standing there before I even take that first step, and then a little bit of the change as I'm stepping, carrying. So yes.
Right. So it's that weight under load where, although there's an isometric hold to the core, the body's moving under that load. And it's really important that we don't sway from side to side, especially if you're like, some people will do a farmer's carry with one weight on the right side, let's say, and you got to hold that up. So you don't want to be leaning one way or the other. So it's just that compression of holding all of that together. So it's those are just two. The other exercise, which I'm sorry, I negated. I was talking about the farmer's carry for the stability. Are you familiar with the exercise called the Pallof press?
I have not heard about this one.
Okay. Maybe you have, maybe others have, you might not know what it is, but you can, I like to use a band. Some people will use a cable, and basically you have that band tied up to maybe a pole and you hold it in front of you, like right in front of your chest. And then as you step away, laterally from that, now you're taking that resistance and you're pushing it forwards away from the body and back to the midline. And as you're doing it, that's another anti-rotational movement. It's that isometric hold on the core, but now you're getting that movement under the movement under load, because now that load is being pushed away and brought back. So, and what's really nice about the Pallof press and using a band is you can use a medium strength band, let's say. And depending on what kind of band you have, I can't really give you a color and idea, but the bands have different, weights to them. But let's say you're using like a 35 to 45 pound band and you're pushing that away. If it's a little too heavy, you can always step in. But again, you've got to keep that body upright, the shoulders back, chest up as you're pushing away and coming back. So under that load, you're moving and stabilizing your body with the weight resistance of weight. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually just brought up a video. Can I share it real quick?
Absolutely. I had one too, but since you already have yours pulled up and I don't know where mine is on my tab, let's show that. Yeah, it's
I'm
great.
hoping this is what it is. I just did a little Google search.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can see how he has that band. This is a great way to start. Another way to do it, it would be an individual arm. That is a more advanced move, but always start with a level 1 and then move up. But yeah, this is exactly what the Pallof press is. It doesn't look like much, but it's a lot. It's a really great exercise.
I'm gonna have to try that one out.
Yeah, let me know what you think of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've done that one or not. So and if I did, it hasn't been in the rotation for a long time. Put it that way. So
and that's a good, you make a good point too. If we get in a rut where we're doing the same exercises over and over again, depending on how fit we are, our bodies can adapt to those movements and the program in as little as 4 weeks. So while some people look at that, oh, this isn't working, it is. What you've done is you've hit a plateau. So now it's, so just different bands, different, exercises, and you could vary it up in so many different ways, and you could keep that in the rotation. It's just at what point do you put it in the workout? What kind of resistance are you doing? And what are you combining it with?
Yeah. That all good points that, you're doing these movements for a reason with like certain weights, and there's a reason why maybe it seems easy. It's because you're progressing.
Exactly. And sometimes it's hard to tell exactly what's progressing or how it's working, but there's just little ways to test yourself and figure that out.
Yeah.
So something I've noticed over the years is that, working with different athletes is they'll have a weak core and they don't even realize the core is weak, and so you're going to get things like your shoulders can be rounded or drop, your pelvic floor drops, the torso wobbles as you're doing different things, reoccurring lower back pain, or lateral, knee pain. You really, those are just some of the signs. The best thing to do, and I think I've talked about this before, to go to some type of fitness professional and have an assessment and find out where your limitations are. Because sometimes when our glutes are weak, that affects more of our lower back because the glutes aren't engaging the way they should. So there's just little things. So I always reiterate the fact that an assessment done with a professional to find out where your strengths and limitations are, and what if you're imbalanced, so that you can address those, because at some point they are going to show up, either as an injury or a performance limiter.
And correct me if I'm wrong here. I feel like we all have a bit of an imbalance because one side is typically stronger than the other. So, right. And whether it's a small imbalance or a large imbalance, just because like, I'm pretty sure that like one leg is usually like a little bit longer than the other. And then like we have a dominant hand or like a dominant side for what we like to do things with. So yeah, an assessment, like you're saying, is great, because then somebody else is looking at things that you're not seeing. Like maybe you kind of know that it's happening with your body, but you're just not sure.
You don't, but here's another point. So I'm going to dovetail off that because you make a good point. But let's just say you're somebody that drives, I don't know how many people drive a stick shift anymore, but I'm going to use that as an example. Every day you're pushing that clutch with that leg, right? So those muscles are being worked, and they're being worked more than the other side. So now you've created imbalance, but you're not going to realize it necessarily until an injury occurs. Because now what's happening is one side is stronger than the other. How is it pulling? Is it pulling like a lot of times people will find their pelvis is tilted because maybe they have a strong right glute and a weak left glute and a strong hip flexor on one side and a weak on the other. So this throws things up. You're not necessarily going to be able to see that yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So by putting the body in different positions and doing an assessment and how the body's moving when you move through a range of motion will give that professional an idea of what that limiting factor can be. Just as I'm sure there's a lot of moms that listen to this. There's a lot of mother athletes out there. And women have a tendency to hold a child on one side where they kick that other hip out. That
Yeah.
creates an imbalance as well, but you might not realize it right away. So now you're doing that, and now you're riding your bike or you're swimming or running, and that side is compromised. And it could take quite some time before the injury would show up. But it doesn't have, these injuries don't happen overnight. They're there. And so once you start feeling that discomfort or something that has been there, you're just not aware of it until the pain sets in, because now other muscles are being compromised. So again, but these are things we want to look for. What is your body doing? Are you rounding forward? Are your hips moving properly? Are your glutes firing properly? And you might not equate it to the core, but that's exactly what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Yeah.
hard to assess yourself. I've had people assess me just to see if I'm overlooking anything. I have some things that I work through on my right hip. I've been rehabbing it because it just, came out of nowhere. Not really, but it's so much fun getting older athletes. We just do it so much more.
It's like, oh, great. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is taking forever to heal. Yep. Okay, great. Thanks. Fun times.
Yes. So why does core stability matter? Okay, so we're looking at, maintaining joint alignment for one. Another one would be is we're protecting the spine. That multifidus muscle. A lot of people have not heard of that. That's a much deeper muscle in the back, and regular exercises may not hit it. I'll give you an example, and this is usually the one I use with my clients. If we build a house without a strong foundation, what'll happen?
It's not going to be there.
At some point, it's going to crumble, right? So when mobility and these foundation muscles aren't engaged the way they should, they become weaker, and the house muscles become stronger. So that also creates an imbalance. So doing I never pronounced the name right. I'm sorry. It's known as the QL muscle. It's another muscle that's in the back. And that's another muscle that a lot of times is not addressed in certain exercises. So there's some core moves like a side plank dip and some other exercises that work into these muscles that could be help with that. And then really we're looking at how the core preserves, the techniques across a swim, a bike, and a run, the thing as we're training and wanting more force and more power. And so the core creates, when we're getting fatigued, a lot of that can go back to the core. I have a friend that was a professional endurance racer, and we were talking one time, and I asked her, what she focuses the most on. And it surprised me to hear her say the core. This was years ago, but when she explained it to me and how it prevented the fatigue and the things that, she would go out and do like 36-hour races.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, more power to her. I'm good with maybe 5 or 6. But it was interesting how much time her and her coach spent on the core. So it does play a very integral role to what we're doing, because it is like our, how does the saying go? You really, we're working from the center out is what we're doing. So when we're strong here in the center and we're stabilized, everything else extends from that.
Did she tell you what specific core exercises that she was given?
No, actually, this was a really long time ago. So, being honest, but, I have a plethora of exercises that I do with the athletes. And sometimes it's using the TRX. Are you familiar with TRX, Mel?
Oh, yes. I haven't done that in a while, but we have one. So yes.
Yeah, the jackknife, the crunches, and some other things. They really, not only does that, what I like about the TRX is it's very functional. So and that's the other thing about what we're talking about with the stability, the core stability and the mobility, is we're working things as a unit. We don't do crunches in life, right? But if I'm doing certain things in life where I need to stabilize myself, like I'm reaching for something, or I'm standing on one leg, or I'm rotating to get something, that's not just one muscle group. That's the whole body working together, because the hips and the pelvis girdle all come into play with the core. That's part of it. So when we think of just if people think of the core as just the front here, the abdominal area itself, they're negating the sides and the posterior chain of the body. And that's all important to bring into the workout. Let's see. I'm going to give a couple examples here. I'm just going to read from my note on this one just so that I get it. So core stability affects performance this way. For the swim, it's a stable trunk, better body line, a stronger reach, and a more efficient stroke, with less shoulder compensation. So a lot of times we'll see people where they can't get their arm up real high to get it back in the water. Maybe they're coming out to the side. Well, not only are they losing time, but now they're not working their muscles in the proper alignment that they should. So, but when the core is efficient and allows you to rotate, and the mobility of the shoulder, and that's why I wanted to talk. I've talked about mobility in the last 2 videos that we have done, so I'll touch on it again lightly here. When we look at the core stability for the bike, we're looking at a stable pelvis. You don't want that pelvis rotating up and down too much. You're going to get some movement. You have steadier power, less torso wobble, as I was talking about, and an improved aero comfort, which is going to sustain better watts, because you're in a better, position, especially for the long course triathletes when they're in that aero position. You still got to use your core. So those are some things. And when we look at the run, a stable core, better stride economy, less form breakdown under fatigue, and reduced knee and hip overload. So if you don't have that, and you've got that constant pounding, and it's not being absorbed the way it probably should in the body, you're looking at greater risk of injury. And that all stems from the core.
Oh yeah. I loved that little breakdown that you did for each, the swim, bike, run.
Oh.
That was really, I like that, because it just kind of, it gives a more of a visual of what you're using for each of the sports.
Yes, it does. One of the things I have, like my athletes do, and they think it's funny, but I actually like to work into that pelvis and get some of the mobility. You literally lay on the ground. I don't know if you could see me, but if your feet are out in front of you, you take your hip. If this was my hip, can you see how I'm moving back and forth? I actually
I think you got to adjust the camera a little bit. But
is this better?
Yes.
So if you're laying down, these are my feet. I'm taking my pelvis and I'm going like this, and I'm literally going across the floor with my hips like this. Whoa. So I'm taking my hips and they're going back and forth this way instead of up and down. So I'm working those muscles in a different direction, but I'm getting that full mobility. And the mobility, again, is your body's ability to work a joint in its full range of motion. Different than flexibility, where you're elongating. It's passive, relaxing, elongating a muscle. Mobility is that joint range of motion. So sometimes when I do assessments, people aren't able to do a full circle or range with their hip or their shoulder, which tells me they just have a limitation, and it's soft tissue that's not being used. So it's getting in a sense stiffer. So you can't pull up as high. You can't push down as hard on your pedal strokes and whatnot. So those all come together. So yeah, so the breakdown, it does, like you said, it creates a nice visual, but that's where the stability and mobility are working together. They work hand in hand to create the power and the force that we need. They're working in unison.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, like, when you're, and I'm sure we've said this before somewhere in Coach's Corner, where there's this with you at some point, but it's when you have 3 sports, you are working different muscles for each one of them. And, it's like, there's just so much to think about, but not in a bad way. It's just, you want to make sure that you have everything sort of together for each of the sports so that you can perform your best. And having that core stability, having that strength. I mean, it's so important for all 3 disciplines, because you want to go to that finish line, and you're going to be tired because you race, but you don't want to just be hurting everywhere. And especially like your core, like your, the front core, and then like your back, and you want to feel like halfway decent when you're finished.
You do. In the body, you're definitely going to be fatigued if you're giving it your all. But to your point, it's a very well balanced. Like, to go do a long course triathlon, you have to practice your fueling strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
To not do that and go out and do a race that can take anywhere from, I don't know, I'm going to say 5.5 to 7.5 hours for on average. I know some athletes do it faster, maybe a little slower, but that's like our median. You're negating an absolutely integral part of your training. It's just like I tell my athletes, I want you to stretch or do your dynamic warm up and stretch after. And I've asked them, how many of them do that? Oh, I didn't have time. I'd rather you lose 10 minutes on the bike or the run to do that, because that's where we're going to prevent the injuries. You don't think it's going to happen to you, but a lot of times people are like, oh, I must have slept the wrong way. That's not what generally that's not what it is. So all of these components are important. And as we've talked in the past, if we're working in that sagittal plane where we're constantly working, up and down, running, swimming, biking, all in the same plane, you've got to work the body in different planes of motion. Otherwise, again, you get stronger and imbalanced in one area. So I'd have to say most of us really, when we get to that finish line, we're going to be fatigued, but how fatigued, and have we created an injury because we were under-trained or imbalanced, and it's rearing its ugly head now because we were out doing, a 3, 4, 5, 6 hour event.
Yeah. Yeah. And just because most people aren't putting, we're going to say triathlon, most people aren't putting the three together when they're training. They're putting two together for a brick.
They're doing a brick, sometimes like a bike to run, which
Yeah.
is essential. So yeah, so that
Yeah.
makes a difference. I want to just share a couple more things I have in my notes here, like the force transfer. So with mobility, that opens the joints range, and the stability ensures that those ranges are controlled. So if you have a full range of motion, but there's no control over it and you're wobbly, that's where the stability comes in. A great way to explain that for people that use machines versus free weights. If you're doing a bench press or some type of press machine, that machine guides you in a range of motion. It takes out the stabilizer muscles. But if you lay on a bench and do dumbbell bench presses or just hold that weight up above your head, that joint stability in the shoulder, a lot of times people feel like their arms really wobbly. And what that is, it's not that you don't have the strength. It's that that joint doesn't have the stability it needs. And here's another thing that's really interesting too. When we're working stability, a tool of stability is isometrics, and isometric works the tendons. So as we're working out and we're doing this, we need to keep this tendon strong because that's what connects everything together. And a lot of people don't do the unilateral or the isometric or the stability work to bring all that together. So a good way we could look at that is, I'm trying to think of a good analogy there. I'm not having enough. I'm trying to think, like the first thing that comes to mind, we can't even ride our bike if there's a broken spoke on it, right?
Right.
You can't. And not that I'm saying your body can't move or you can't do it, but that's like one way of kind of looking at it. Like it's just one little spoke on the bike, and you can't necessarily ride that bike because it can throw everything off. So that's where like the tendon and the stability come into play. So, some people will ask me, well, how would I fit all this in? You do your dynamic warm up for mobility. You go into your strength, and while you're doing your strength, you put a stability move in there. There's our times in the season where you're doing maybe 4 to 6 reps for pure power and strength, and then there's times in our season where we're doing more reps with a little bit of less weight, but we're also mixing in plyometrics with this, or we're mixing in different things. So in the off season, you can put in a little bit more. During season, it's a little bit more focused, or it should be with your strength training. So everything has a purpose and a reason. And when we start negating that, we start losing our performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, my brain is just going to like the Bosu ball, right? Because like you flip it, like you can have it on either side. So one, that's stability if you're standing on it. But then if you have something that you're working with, and it could be a bar, it could be a weight. And if you're just like doing like a little simple squat, and it's like you're working the stability in different areas, but you're working a little strength. And I don't know, like just like the Bosu ball just came to mind because I'm always like, I always feel so wobbly on it.
It is. It's good. It's for balance, for stability. Let me give you an exercise for stability. So hip stability, hip hinge, individual hip hinge. Okay. There are ways to modify that, but a lot of times when people are doing that, their back is not flat, it's tilted. And a tilted back indicates that you don't have the strength in that hip or the stability to keep your body balanced. And when you're doing a hip hinge, there's movement. So that's movement under load. So these are important movements to put in. They might not seem all that important because like a squat, a deadlift, a bent over row, those are important, but those are like the top. I would look at it as the top, if that makes sense, as we're trying to build up to that. So hip hinge would be another good one. You know, another really good one for people when they have like their glutes might be bothering them. I can't remember the term I want, but it is an isometric hold on an individual glute thrust. So you've got one leg up in the air and you're pushing your hips and glute, your hips up on the one foot. When you're doing that and coming up, as you get to the top and hold that and contract the glute, you're also working your tendon. So it's an isometric hold that's working the stability in the glutes and in the hips.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought you were going to ask something.
No. I've done that.
Yeah.
I've done that, and that's a great exercise.
Another one I like is you might be able to, you're on your computer. I'm afraid if I mess up, I'm going to cut us off or something. Another one I do with my clients is called the bird dog one arm row.
Okay. Bird dog.
So normally you do a dumbbell row like that. You have one knee on the bench and one on the floor. Now you have one knee on the bench. So let's say it's your left knee and your right arm is doing the row, but my right leg is off the bench. It's like creating like the bird dog where one arm is up and one is down, but now you're rowing, and you have to have a lot of shoulder stability, a lot of core stability to do that movement, especially as you're adding weight to it.
I found it.
Okay.
This guy's got a big weight too.
Yeah, he's making it look easy. I've had a lot of people do this, and it is not, because you are completely balancing your body. And he's also using his foot on the bench, meaning that the leg that's on the bench, you can see his foot is cupped up against the back of the bench. That helps stabilize you. You can see right there how his foot is onto that. You take your foot off of that, and now you have pure balance in your hips and lower back. And then the arm that's on the bench, you have some shoulder stability here. So you've got a very functional movement with this particular exercise, because now it's not just not just working like the back and a little bit of the shoulder and the biceps. It's now core stability, shoulder stability, balance, coordination. And there's a little cognitive component that comes with this too, which is another thing I like to put into my workouts, because that's where we keep our minds in correlation with our muscle movements and everything. So that's important too, to cognitively be working our bodies.
Yeah, and don't let this leg fly out. It doesn't need any wings.
Right. But that's perfect. The other thing to point out, you see how flat his back is?
Yeah.
That's very important. A lot of people have a tilt where, because that leg's back, that right hip will be up. So there'll be like a slant. You have to keep that flat. So before somebody goes and tries this, I always have them do shoulder taps first. Hands wide, feet wide. Tap your shoulder and work on keeping those hips completely flat. Once you can do that, then you can move into different moves. But those hips need to stay parallel to the ground. So he's got excellent form in this particular video.
Yeah. I mean, like his leg's not all the way back here somewhere. Like you're right. His plane is really, really good.
It is. I don't, I've looked for videos, and I can't, I don't know the name of this exercise, but if it's I call it the tripod chest press. You're kind of creating the same thing. Now you're on your back from the shoulder blades up. That's the only thing that's on the bench. You've got one arm in the air, one leg in the air, and you're bench pressing one side at a time. Okay. So now you've kind of taken that exercise and flipped it upside down. So now you have glute, core, leg stability, and shoulder. Again, I think there's the bridge chest press, individual bridge chest press, I think is the name of it. I have all of these in my Training Peaks account. These are movements that, like, maybe one day you do a bench press, one day you do a stability ball bench press, and then the next time you do this tripod type of bench press. So you're getting strength because you've done the regular bench press. You're still getting strength and stability with the ball. the way you're doing your bench press, because there's no bench to support your lower back. So you've got to use your core and your glutes. And that now you're getting total body balance and coordination with doing that individual, like that tripod chest press.
Yeah.
These are things that you want to work in, and that's all stability. Actually, I was working with a group of gals, and they're all cyclists, and they had never seen some of these exercises, and they were really pleasantly surprised at how challenging they were, but yet how they could see how effective they were in working muscle groups and putting them together way they have never done so in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can see how this equates to, balance on the bike. And for those people, I know some of the triathletes dibble in gravel. Not only will this help you on like the road, but you think you're on gravel, it's uneven. You have a better way to balance and stabilize your bike, which is great cross training too.
It's just, I'm only laughing because I'll mountain bike on Friday mornings. Not going to tell people where I go because I want nobody coming because it's my quiet time. And I'm pedaling and I'm like, oh, it's like a little hill. And it's just like, I forget how much work mountain biking is. And then I have to train my brain too. You have to flip the switch from road. But I tell you what, every Saturday when I wake up, my lower back hurts because also I'm very tense when I'm riding, but it's so different because road riding is different than mountain bike riding, right? Because you're using so many different kinds of muscles. And so I'm always like, but I love doing this.
I do cross training on my mountain bike too, once or twice a week. And it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because then I don't know, sometimes I feel a little bit more alive too. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I had these muscles. All right.
Right. It's a great way to just wake up some other muscles and, cross train and still have fun and get the cardio you need for triathlon.
Yes. 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 Exactly. Because, you swim, bike, run, you just got to add in other things with it, right? It can't just be, just road riding. You want to do some mountain biking or not just road running, but some trail running. And there's nothing really different I guess pool swimming versus open water swimming. So there we go. Right. So there's all the differences.
Right. And it's a good cross training. It gives you some variety. You don't get bored, and pounding on the pavement all the time for the run is not good for the body either. Just even getting on the tow path. But we have some great trails, even some of the trails over at West Creek that are newer that they've put in, and the Buckeye Trail. Those are some good trails to be on. So yeah, I've always said I'm that athlete that has ADD because I do a little bit of everything. I can't just do one. Can't be just one sport. Even if it was just triathlon is my one sport, I still, I've got gravel, mountain biking, time trialing. So I do a little, and it makes it more fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. There's so many things to do, right? And this is a total sidebar, but that's also why, let's say in the winter, people will ski, whether it's cross country ski, downhill ski, they'll snowshoe, right? Because they know that having some other sports mixed in changes up the mindset, but it's also good for the body.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to, think about for those people that might not be doing mobility and stability, you can do mobility daily, 5 to 10 minutes would be very helpful. And then the stability moves can be done at least once a week, if not twice. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, especially during the in season if you're getting ready for a long course, but just adding some of those in makes it can enhance performance, significantly, just doing that once or twice a week. 1 or 2 moves.
Yeah. Well, and like you mentioned, with your athletes, if they're not doing the post race, post workout stretching, maybe take a little bit of the time off of that workout if you don't think you're going to have the time. And it's a mentality shift, to make sure you're doing these mobility and stabilities exercises, but the payout helps so much in the short and long run, really. So
it does. I was going to ask you something about that, and it's escaping me. It'll come back. But I was going to dovetail off something you said. So, I know what I was going to say. Sometimes right after a workout, we might not have time. Maybe we're out at the park and we've done our bike and our bike and run. But at least before you go to bed, if you could spend 5 to 10 minutes stretching, hold those stretches, do them a couple times, put a variety in, and do at least the basics, like your figure four, your quad, your hamstring, get into the glutes, things like that, get into the upper body a little bit, keep the back mobile is, just to keep those muscles like primed in a sense where they're warmed up and moving, and you're getting some blood flow through, because that's where it aids in recovery too. Just get more blood flow through those muscles. So a lot of times I'll do my stretching 10 minutes before I go to bed.
Yeah, and then you're like, I feel good about myself. I can go to bed now.
Well, not only that, but I feel a little bit more relaxed. I feel like I can lay down and go to sleep, because
Oh, actually, that's a really good point.
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
You
And
put a little soothing music on too as you're stretching.
right. You might fall asleep on the floor, but hey, at least you fell asleep. No, but it does make a difference. Sometimes I'll foam roll and then do a few minutes of stretching. And when I get into bed, I just feel like my muscles are relaxed, and I feel more, I just feel more relaxed.
Yeah. Ready to get those Z's in.
Absolutely, because that's where we get our recovery.
Yes. Our built-in recovery.
Right, right.
Did you have any other things that you wanted to share before we
No,
end this segment?
yeah, no, that was, I wanted to keep it short and sweet today. I'm heading out of town. However, if anybody is interested in a brief PDF with some of those exercises, if you hit me up towards the beginning of July, or once you see this, I will send you a little outline with some exercises you can do, but just bear with me because I'm going to be out of town the 24th through July 3rd. But I'd like to be able to share some of that with them and give them a better idea of what we're talking about, so they can go through it themselves and see how they feel.
Awesome. So I will share your email, but if you want to just say it right now too, that would be great.
Oh yeah, my email is rolling.w.rhea, RHEA @gmail.com. Rolling with Rhea.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Stacey.
You
We
too.
love having you
Appreciate it.
here.
Oh, thank you. I enjoy it.
You always have some great knowledge nuggets. So yeah, I can't wait to go back through. I took some notes, but I can't wait to go back through and listen to some things too. So
Oh,
all
awesome.
right.
Well, very
Thank
good.
you so much. And we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.